your life, then that's going to be a no-brainer, right? I don't care how much work it takes. I'm gonna do it because this is what I enjoy doing. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Then you've got to, remember that this is a business, and you need to respect yourself and your hourly rate. And so I think that those pressures refine you and make you stronger in your craft.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the KDigitals podcast where we talk about artists, their style, the origin, and the process. Joining me today is Rich Mino. How you doing today, Rich?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. So I'm excited to have you on. I feel like I've been knowing I should have asked you to be on a while ago. I just never got around to it. And now, let's kick off the year with you now that me and you are doing a lot more projects together.
Awesome. Yeah. And I know, schedules, sometimes you've got your process laid out months in advance. So.
Yeah, right. But it's also I'm excited to talk to you about because I feel like you get that, right? Like you definitely have. So before I run down that street, Rich, for everyone, usually I kick off the podcast asking guests to define themselves on their type of, whether they define themselves as an artist, whether it's a photographer, a videographer, or a graphic designer, or a model, or whatever it may be. But I've learned when I try to define the artist, they have their own version of themselves. Because you do a lot of things, how do you define yourself in a simple line?
Sure. So, we've got a company, Mino Media Group. There's a team of professionals under that umbrella, and we basically look at ourselves as content creators through different types of medium that fit the need of the client. And sometimes that's photography, sometimes that's video, sometimes that's aerial work, sometimes it's immersive kind of virtual tour 360 experiences that help showcase a space. So just depending on who the client is, what the project is, we've got a team that can pretty much handle all facets of content creation. And so while photography is definitely, one of our passions, don't want to kind of on the commercial side of things, don't want to limit it to just that. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that's why I'm like really excited to ask you. You know me, when I'm with you, I'm always picking your brain, but I feel like there's a lot more I could be asking. So like when people are say like they're trying to, when they have a camera, right? It's like, okay, I'm a portrait photographer, I'm a landscape photographer, but you kept it very vague, but because you could do so much. So why not just like focus on like, I'm purely fashion photography, content creation. Like the fact that you said content creation is like something a lot of people don't try to say. It's like, oh, I'm just a photographer. But how come you chose to do bigger than that?
Well, I think it goes back to our origins as a company, right? Like when we started out, I've got a minor in photography. I studied business administration. So photography from a little kid has always been a passion of mine. I've always had a camera in my hand. But when we built the business around that and it became more than just a hobby, the entryway into commercial work for us was a contract that was awarded to us by Google to do virtual tours of restaurants, hotels, mostly hospitality. Things that I was no longer able to do with just my DSLR and a 50 millimeter lens, right? So I had to incorporate other technology, other processes for capturing content. But ultimately, it is what the business needed to showcase or to fill their need, right, for that marketing niche, that marketing project that was going on. So that quickly opened my eyes to the possibility of doing more with a camera than just snapping a two-dimensional picture. So I think that kind of drove us to not just become a team of photographers, but really a team of content creators that can create this content depending on what the needs are of the client. And sometimes that just goes beyond a camera and a lens.
Do you ever find yourself in any situation where, how am I trying to ask it? Like, have there ever been a situation where someone's like, hey, can you do this type of work? And you're like, maybe, like you haven't done that before. You're like, oh yeah, I could totally do that. Like, how do you mold yourself to that?
I think at this point in the game, when I get those questions, I've had experience with doing a lot of different types of content creation. So I don't feel like I'm faking it till I make it by saying, yeah, I can do it. And then I got to go research how to get it done.
Yeah.
And also the fact that we've got a team of professionals, not just here in California, but scattered, throughout the country in different states doing similar things. each one of those creatives has a wealth of knowledge and experience, right? And so if I specifically don't have experience in doing something, I know somebody on my team has. So under the Mino Premier MPMG umbrella, it's really cool to be able to leverage experience and expertise from different creatives in different parts of the country, where maybe things on the East Coast are done differently, say in New York, for example, than in LA. Right? So yeah, I mean, I think initially up front I did, right? When they're like, hey, can you shoot food photography? I'm like, no, in my head, I can't, but how hard can it be, right? Like I've been shooting photography for 10 years now. And I mean, that's what I was thinking back then.
Yeah.
So, and it's mostly been like homes or people or, you know, lifestyle or couples. How hard is it going to be to shoot, you know, pasta on a dish? And then you get into it and you're like, oh man, this is easy. This isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be, but it opens your eyes to a lot of different things and different ways of capturing that shot. And so you learn in that process and you grow and you become stronger. I think one of the things that I'm really passionate about is not just learning and hoarding that information, but sharing it with other people that are interested in learning. And so I really have a big passion for teaching other people and collaborating with other people. So, you know, sometimes you hear the word collaboration and it just means do stuff for free. And to me, collaboration doesn't mean that, right? Collaboration means let's get together and work together, and both kind of benefit and both grow from that experience.
Yeah, like where did I hear it the other day? It was something like the whole point of it's like there's always this conversation of like, oh, like in the context of like a model and a photographer, right? Is it the photographer that makes a photo or is it the model that makes a photo? Right? Which one is more important? I feel like everyone can like, oh, well, it depends on the context. But like you said, like you know, I think it always comes down to like at the end of the day, if a bunch of people are together and the goal is to create something, that's like a team of problem solvers to solve that. How do we create that? Right. And I think the more you can work together to do that. But then, like you said, yeah, there's especially like you're just entering the scene. The word collab is like either a really good word or a really bad word, right? Depending on who you're talking to. It's just like
exactly. And I think that comes from their past experiences with people that wanted to collab, right? That wanted to collaborate. So I don't know. I think it's always good to be open to the idea of collaboration, but I think there's also value in having a conversation before you meet to understand what that collaboration process is like, right? Is it really collaborative, or are you just trying to get free pictures, right? Or is it really collaborative and do you just want me to pose for your shots and not pay me, right? Because I think on both sides of the equation, we value our time. A photographer has an hourly rate that if he's not working with you, he's going to be working with somebody else and billing for that time. I'm talking on the professional commercial side, right? And then a model, if we're talking portrait photography, should also value her time as well. And I think there's a need for models to create a business around what it is that their profession is, right? Versus just posing in front of the camera for free in exchange for pictures. That's great if you're portfolio building, or that's great, you know, on both sides. It's great for the photographer and the model if you're just starting out and want to build a portfolio that showcases what you're capable of as a photographer, or how you look or can look, or what different looks you can pull off in front of the lens and different outfits, that sort of thing for a model. But I think once you get to that point where you've proven to yourself, not necessarily the rest of the world, but you've proven to yourself that you've got you've got what it takes to do this professionally, then you've got to, you know, remember that this is a business, and you need to respect yourself and your hourly rate as a business person or business owner or whatever the case may be, but also really respect the people that you work with, their time, right? And value what that hour means to them, right? Because if they're not giving it to you for free, they could be charging somebody else for it. And so you kind of have to find that equity, you know, and that balance.
Yeah, that was well spoken, man. That was good. Yeah, no, and I think we talked about that a lot, right? In terms of like it both sides of the coin are trying to make money, right? And obviously there's always a trade-off depending on who it is, and you kind of figure that out. That's that conversation you have. But once like that person just shuts it down, it's like, no, I'm not paying for nothing. You pay me. And it's like, okay, damn. Like it's cool. Go run your business. I'll go find someone else to work with. But I mean, that's what I want to talk to you, right? So like the fact that, like I've had other photographers on here and it's usually like around like art and all that, but you really do think about it in the sense of like, this is a business, right? This isn't, I mean, it could be a hobby, right? But it's also a business. I guess when you're working with people, then do you find like the business side to you tends to like direct how the shoot goes? Or like, do you ever let your art kind of take over and like, let me just focus and create and not worry about how this might circle back to the business?
No, you know what, to be honest, I kind of separate the two. And I get the tough part for me at least over with, so that then I can just enjoy the creative process, right? I'm not a salesperson at heart. Like I don't like selling to people. I don't like convincing them that they have to pay. So it's either going to happen or it's not going to happen. But once we kind of have that connection established, we respect each other's time. You understand that there's a fee, and we're kind of black and white with what that looks like, and we're black and white with what we're delivering as a deliverable to the person that's hiring us to take their pictures or video or whatever it is. Then we got that all out of the way. All right, now let's when are we scheduled? Monday at 5 o'clock. We're shooting for 2 hours from 5 to 7. It's fun. It's like artistic, creative.
Yeah.
Her input is I don't have, is she going to pay her bill in the back of my head? Is she going to complain about the editing? It is what it is. We kind of set the groundwork and get that out of the way, because that for me, that really kind of gets in my head if I'm trying to handle the business side of it in the back of my brain while I'm trying to shoot and create amazing content for the client.
So yeah, cool. So now I want to transition to that part. So I've I guess keep it simple. How do you describe your photography style? Like specifically in the terms of like portrait, fashion, model work?
Yeah, so I would call our style sultry and pretty dark, right? So I want the impact of our content when somebody looks at it to be strong. I don't want it to be vulgar, right? And then I also don't want it to be kind of happy-go-lucky sunshines and rainbows. So I really want to have a lot of mood and feeling and emotion in our images. And I think a lot of that comes in with the type of model that you work with, the feel that you can get from them or that you can pull from them, right? Because sometimes depending on their level of experience, it takes some work to kind of pull that out of a person if they haven't in them to pull it out from. And then the other aspect of it is lighting. For me, it's key. It's huge. Like I can definitely, we've shot in natural light for many years, and I think we get a lot of great content using natural light. But I also think artificial light, professional artificial light, really enhances even natural light photography. So it was definitely one of those things where we had to cross that bridge and transition from the fear of using lighting to I take amazing pictures in natural light. Like, why do I need professional lighting? To then understanding how that augmented lighting helps your overall shot. And so once you kind of get that, I think you have control over what kind of lighting you want in your images. And maybe that is 100% natural light, and maybe it's not. But you're making that choice intentionally versus only shooting in one type of scenario because that's all you're comfortable with. Right?
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, like, I think I shot natural light for the longest time just because I didn't know how to use, like, I had a little speed light, right? And I was like, I don't know how to use it. I'm a natural light shooter. Okay, now I got to learn, now I'm like, oh, all I want to do is shoot in the studio now. Cause now it's like a whole new like realm of what a photo can look like,
Sure. Yeah. And maybe it's your decision is I only want to shoot natural light because I don't like the way studio light looks, and that's fine. But you can't make that decision well informed unless you've tried it, right? Unless you know what it's like and what you're capable of, and that just comes with practice of being in a studio, and being surrounded by all this equipment. And that comes at a price, right? So I understand why that sometimes isn't the immediate go-to for photographers. It's because studio time is hella expensive. Even renting, lighting gear is expensive, and sometimes you don't know what to rent, right? So you want to play around with different things, and all of that just kind of adds up, right? At the end of the day, like if you practice and practice and practice, you're spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars over the course of a couple of months just to improve your game. But it's key, right? It's important.
Mm-hmm. So then on the kind of a hard left, on the note of getting better, right?
Yeah.
So how do you get better as like an interior designer photographer?
Yeah, so one of the verticals that we have with Mino Pro Media Group is spaces. So interior design, architectural work. We don't do as much real estate as we used to when we first started, and I think that was just a decision. But like with anything else, you get better at things when you practice them, right? And the only way that you can practice a genre or a certain type of photography is to constantly do that type over and over and over again. For architectural photography, we've been kind of blessed and fortunate to have a community of interior designers that have kind of embraced us and brought us in as their chapter photographer for one of our local organizations here in San Diego. And so that provides a lot of opportunities for us to not just show them what we're capable of, but also continue to learn and grow and practice and find different situations where lighting is different at 10 a.m. than it is at 3 p.m. And so what are you going to do to overcome that, right? In the studio, you control everything. But when you're on an interior designer's schedule and their availability, and the homeowner is only available on Friday between 5 and 6, and sun goes down at 5:30, what do how do you adapt? And so I think that those pressures refine you and make you stronger in your craft.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned you've been doing this for, like, at one point you brought the food photographer, and you like, at that point it was 10 years in, and now you're more years in. But if you just minored in photography, how do you go from minoring to like running a full-on business?
Yeah, so I think you want like the long story or the short story?
Let's do long story.
I'll give you a quick synopsis of the long story. So I'm old, man. Like I'm not young. So I've been around for a few decades, and during that time, I transitioned careers. So initially, I was in bookkeeping and accounting, and then that transitioned into finance, specifically for architectural and interior design firms. So that's what they would do. I didn't deal in the creative part of it at all. It was mostly the finance stuff, project-based financing. My younger brother, watching this, then grew like an interest in architecture and actually went to school for architecture, and he's an architect now, and that's what he does, while also having a passion for video photography, creativity, that sort of thing. So my transition went from being a finance guy for big companies to saying, hey, I'm spending all my time dedicating my life to making these multi-million-dollar companies even richer, right? While I'm making barely minimum wage in the process. What can I do to spin this around and turn this passion and focus it towards helping other people? And that's when the thought and passion for financial planning came into my life, right? So I said, okay, well, I'm gonna quit the 9-to-5 corporate job where I was doing finance, and I'm gonna become a financial planner. That financial planner got licensed, went through all the steps and licensing and requirements and testing to do what I needed to do, and then landed a job where I quickly realized that for the most part, financial planning is a sales job, right? You got to go out and you have to convince people that they need to save, they need to invest, they need to plan for their future. Things that people aren't really concerned with when they're, they were in my demographic when I was in my 20s, approaching my 30s. They were focused on other things. And then older people that did have a mindset for that didn't want to listen to a 25-year-old tell them what to do with their money, or already had somebody that they were working with. So it was a really difficult time for me because, as I mentioned before, sales is not my strong suit, right? I do not like the sales part of it. There's people that love it. There's people that are really passionate and really good at it. That's what makes them good at it. That was just me. So I was just miserable at my job. And my brother didn't like sitting at a desk 9 to 5 being an architect either. So we kind of started a little company that responded to the need of Google to have photographers kind of do that sort of thing. And then that launched, our businesses. So we started doing photography for Google. That created relationships with the restaurant owners and the hospitality industry folks. And so they asked us to come back and do other types of, photography and filming, which segued into headshots for their creative staff or for their chefs and that sort of thing. We got good at that. So that kind of focused us on doing more portrait work in and out of studio. And then the business just started slowly growing, into different facets and responding to the need of these relationships that we were building. So I think something that I'm really big on is relationships. And I think that drove a lot of the growth in our business because people saw that we weren't transactional, right? We weren't just showing up, charging $500 to take a couple of pictures and then never talking to them again. It was important for us to build a relationship, knowing that one, it would make the process a lot more enjoyable. And two, we'd probably get a lot more repeat business if they liked this versus didn't like the experience with us whatsoever. So I think in any business, but in a service industry like this, relationships and valuing other people is huge.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I don't think you ever told me the whole story. I'd known the accounting part, but I don't think I've known the full transition. That's cool. And so what's it now? Is is there any part of you that's like, oh no, photography creating is kind of getting the old man, I want to change it again, where you're like, nope, I'm gonna be here for another
10, I think it took me a while to understand that the minor that I focused on in college, if I were to do it all over again, I would have made that my major, made that my focus. Not that the business side of it didn't help, because it definitely supports being a business owner and understanding the ins and outs of balancing your budget and forecasting expenses and that sort of thing, so that you're not caught in a bad spot on those months where you don't have any business coming in, right? Because it's so transitional for us as creatives. Even with some commercial work coming in, it's really hard. So just kind of planning that definitely served us. But I think accepting the fact that I am a creative person and embracing that as what I enjoy to do, and building a business around that has brought us to a place where we're really happy, man, every day. We're just wake up and if we don't have a project to shoot, we definitely have some projects to edit. And as long as you have some dedicated time to focus on that, with a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, it makes it kind of difficult, right? But and you just had a baby. Congratulations. Yeah. No, how's that going?
Well, like I was saying before the call, it's just the level of responsibility that I have now that's not work related is taking most of my time, which is cool, right? But it's oh man, where I'm at in life, it's probably easier to make it happen. But now I think oh, my parents and other people who aren't don't get to work from home, right? Who maybe not make as much, or had a kid way early on when they're still just I can't imagine how people raise kids, right? That requires so much attention. And again, I have me and Angie, and we can make it happen. But it's oh man, they're still like you said, you have 2 kids and they're both close in age. Oh, I'm here trying to figure out how am I going to slot a time, an hour a day to edit a video, right? And you're running a whole business with the family. It's it's a lot of work, but it's rewarding. I get that part, but it's there's a lot of times where I just want to sleep. I just want to sleep. I don't want to do nothing today.
Yeah, it gets easier, man.
Yeah,
it gets easier. Just hang in there.
I appreciate that. Well, so Rich, I know we're nearing time, so I wanted to end it on one last question. Again, being someone that's done this for a long time, both on the creative side, both on the business side, is there any advice you can give to a starting creative that's starting out, that could probably help save them, years worth of headaches?
Yeah, I think I would say figure out what your what your goal is, what your end goal is with this passion for photography that you have, right? I think the advent of social media has brought on a lot of people that are, coming to terms with their love for the creative, right? And if it's something that they really want to build a business on or around, then you really need to kind of roll up your sleeves and get to work, because it's not going to come easy. If it's something that you just want to do as a hobby or post Instagram, content periodically, then, and while keeping your 9-to-5 job, or while keeping another business going, then there's two different paths, right? There's one that lets you have a safety net financially while growing creatively, and then the other one, you got to really like bootstrap and get to work, because it's not cheap, it's not easy, and it takes a lot of work. It's a business, right? It's not just I'm a photographer. You're a business first. What type of business are you? You're a photography business. And what businesses all have in common are you've got to have finances coming in. You've got to be able to overcome your overhead expenses. If you bring on a team, you've got to be able to handle payroll. If you have a space, you got to deal with that. So, I would say write down how big you want this thing to get and what your goals are. And then if, in 2-3 years, you want to be clearing 6 figures doing photography work, then there's a lot of things that you got to have to factor in, and just be real with yourself as far as what is going to take to get there. If you're passionate about it, if this is your life, then that's going to be a no-brainer, right? I don't care how much work it takes. I'm gonna do it because this is what I enjoy doing. This is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. If it's not, or if you think that that's what it is, and then you go through the process and you realize, man, I don't know if I can do this, then it's better for you to do that up front than 2-3 years after investing thousands of dollars in gear and then realizing this isn't gonna work. Like I gotta go back to doing something else.
Yeah, that's all part of the process, right? Yeah. Which is fun, which is a fun process. Sure. Cool, man. I'm glad I got you on got you on the podcast, Rich. Where people follow you, see your work, follow Mino Pro.
Yeah, so we've got our Mino Pro Media, at Mino Pro Media is our hashtag for the overall company business, I guess, posts, that sort of thing, which kind of covers all of our different verticals at a very kind of top level. And then we've got a couple of other different Instagram accounts for the different types of verticals that we focus on. So one would be the mpmg_eats, and we can kind of write all these down later. mpmg_portraits for our portrait work, and then spaces for the ones that we shoot architectural stuff in. And all of those, really focus more in depth into the types of photography that we do under those verticals. And the reason we kind of did that was to not confuse people as to what Mino Pro Media is, because like you said, like we talked in the beginning, like we wear so many different hats because we service different markets that it can get kind of confusing. And then our Instagram feed, for example, was, like a couple of cheeseburgers and a really attractive model, like right next to the bacon cheeseburger, and then like a living room. So it didn't flow. It didn't make any sense. And people were like, what? I don't understand what they do. Like they're trying to do it all. And the reality is there's some things that we don't do. So we're not trying to tackle the whole market, but we intentionally picked different verticals that we do enjoy and we want to focus on. And then we've honed in on those and improved and gotten better and grow and invest. And we want to make sure that those are areas that we really deliver for our clients on.
Yeah.
And we just got some studio space, man. We have a pop-up studio in North Park for 2022. Maybe we can talk about that on another session, but we're really intent on building community and creating opportunities for up-and-coming professionals, creatives that may not have the budget to have their own studio, or may not have the budget to own, all this lighting equipment, and just create a space and opportunity where creatives that are like-minded can come in, spend time in, use equipment, figure out what a studio is like, and get some exposure to that. So we're really, really excited for that. I think we're shooting for like February of this year.
Yeah. So the problem, I was like, I should ask him about that, but like, I'm not sure like if it should be revealed yet, but yeah, man. I mean, I'm going to be there tomorrow, so I'll
cool. Okay,
help creating the content for that, right? So that'll be cool. But cool, man. Thanks for joining me today, Rich.
You got it.
I'm gonna go and wrap this up and stop the recording. But everyone that followed, thank you for joining us, and go ahead and give Rich a follow. And I'll see y'all later. Thanks, everybody.